Thank you all for being here. This is really an exciting experience for us, and we're pleased to see such a strong cross-section of people from the state and from the region, really. In a minute, we'll have everybody else out there will have their coffee, and we'll just go ahead and get started. We tried, I would ask a question while we're waiting for everybody to settle here. We tried to find a hotel in the state that was kind of central and easy for everyone to get to. So I have a question, does this hotel work for that? Is it, anybody think, this was the craziest place to be? It's just too hard to get here? So I usually go flying right by here on the way to BW Airport when I'm late for a flight. I didn't even know this was here, so. Okay, we have everyone in? Good. Well, I want to welcome you. Thank you all for being here today. I want to take a moment and introduce and thank the staff of Nick Taff. If you would all stand up and I'll point out who they are. There's Melinda George, our Vice President, Sophie Huntington, who works on our higher education initiatives, Elizabeth Foster on this initiative as well as everything else. Carrie Burke, raise your hand, who's actually put this whole event together. Thank you, Carrie. Laura Coscarelli, Jeff Dirks in the back there. And people always ask me, I'm the president of the National Commission on Teaching in America's Future. I tell people that we're the organization in the district that has more words in its name than staff, okay? We get a lot done with a small staff. It's a national organization. We work in states around the country. We have multiple initiatives underway. And they say to us, how do you get all that work done with such a small staff? And I like to say planning, hard work, and everything, but we really do it with magic. And they are the magic. That staff, the staff that we have are the magic. So thank you all. I also want to thank Larry Clark, who's in the front here. He'll be making some remarks in a few minutes. I'll introduce him. But Larry is with the Deerbook Charitable Trust, and they are sponsoring this event and have been one of our core funders as we've been building learning studios in Maryland. So thank you, Larry. And I want to thank all of you. Partnerships are the spark that make things happen in education. If we really want to drive change, we want to drive innovation in education, partnerships, cross-sector, cross-community partnerships are the way we get it done. And you represent a tremendous cross-section of potential partners. We've got school district teams here and school district leaders. We have the business community here represented. We have teachers associations. We have foundations. You have the combined expertise, experience, and ability to make this happen, to give today's youth a genuine opportunity to become the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the leaders we need to participate successfully in a global community. Margaret Mead, I'm a cultural anthropologist, so I always refer to Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead once said, never doubt the power of a small group of thoughtful people to change the world. That's the way it's always happened. And that's you. And this is not such a small group. And you're well positioned in a variety of organizations to really bring about significant change in this education system that we have. So I want to thank you. I also want to emphasize that the work that we're doing with Learning Studios grows out of a long history. Nick Taff has been around since 1994. we released a report called What Matters Most that said the single most important factor in a child's education is a quality teacher. What we said was quality teaching in schools organized for success is what makes a difference. And that's a two-part proposition. We need great teachers, but we need schools that embrace those teachers and students with the support structures, the resources that they need to thrive. And that's been our mission from the beginning. Develop great teachers and develop great schools that will give them the support they need. That includes community support. We reiterated that in 2003 when we released a report called No Dream Denied, that really challenged the nation to move beyond our what I think is largely an unreasonable and unfair expectation right now, that we hold individual teachers accountable for preparing students for a 21st century economy. Preparing students for a 21st century economy is a demanding challenge, and no one should be expected to do that alone, working alone. We should be embracing our teachers and students, wrapping them around with the power, the spirit of teamwork that every high-performing organization in the world uses to succeed. If you go anywhere in this economy, healthcare teams, fire and rescue teams, I just had my car service last week, and a mechanical team, you can't get anything done in this economy without encountering a team that is organized for high performance. We need to tell teachers that we've got their back, that they're going to have the power of teamwork they need to support their work. And that's really what we're about with these learning studios. That's what we're building with these learning studios. And we need to do this now more than ever. I've been saying for a while that we're living in an age that I call the learning age. I call it the learning age because when a lot of us went to school, we went to school to learn to do the job. Now learning is the job. Learning is the work. Learning is the job that our young people will do for the rest of their lives. And they will do that constant learning, inquiry, investigation, problem solving, creativity in collaboration with others. It'll be done in a team setting. So we need to give our students schools that look like and function like the rest of the world, that look like and function like the places they'll live and work in. And that's what we're doing with learning studios. We organized learning studios in Maryland because this is a state that has a significant commitment to STEM education. There's a very strong STEM curriculum in the state. There's strong business education partnerships in the state. There's a tremendous STEM economy in this region, jobs, okay? But what we didn't have was enough STEM talent in the classroom. We're not preparing enough STEM teachers to ensure that every child, not just the students in a STEM high school, but every child has access to the STEM talent, the hands-on work that they need in genuine real-world inquiry, that they need to genuinely prepare for college careers and success in life. And so we said, how can we get more STEM resources into the classroom? We can't prepare enough teachers fast enough. And we took a look around, and we said, well, you know what? Maryland is the state in the country that has the highest per capita population of STEM professionals in the country and probably in the world, because of we're fortunate here with all of the corporations, government agencies. So we were intrigued about what could we do if we team up all of those STEM professionals with the teachers. And we create a studio environment in which teams of teachers, students, and STEM professionals are doing real-world projects. And that's how learning studios were launched. They were launched 4 years ago now with a grant from NASA, partnership with Goddard Space Center. Northrop Grumman joined us, U.S. Naval Academy joined us, We now have a couple of dozen STEM professionals from Energy Department, National Institutes of Health, Park Service. It's a wide array, and it's growing rapidly. There's now 30 of these learning studios in Maryland, and we'd like to expand so that our vision is that every child in the state, every child in the country really, should have an opportunity to engage in authentic STEM work, science and math investigations, engineering, problem solving, working alongside of a scientist or engineer professional in the field with accomplished teachers. And we can do that. We can do that in the state. We can do that in this region. We're very excited to have people from Northern Virginia here. We have Alexandria schools and Fairfax County schools represented here. We should make a National Capital Region network of learning studios. We have the opportunity, we have the schools, we have the resources. This is the region that will have the largest growth in STEM jobs over the next few years. We're not preparing enough students. We could make this happen. Another fact you should know is that in less than 5 years, the Washington region is going to have 1.5 million retired baby boomers. They're retiring from industry and government and defense contractors. We're going to have retired teachers. They're retiring in the community. And all of the surveys of baby boomers are saying they're retiring and they're saying, okay, this is boring. Give me something to do, all right? And majority of them want to make a difference with youth and children in education. But they can't just walk out the door and do it. They can't just walk to the school and say, I'm here, give me something to do. We need to build well-structured, rigorous, robust pathways for them to work with those students. So this is our opportunity. You have the capacity to make that happen. You are the combination of STEM expertise, accomplished educators, foundations, community-based organizations that can put together a powerful learning environment, more powerful than anything we've seen before, that will prepare our students genuinely for college careers in life, will prepare them to be the leaders and innovators we need to succeed. These young children can take on challenges and realize dreams that we could only imagine right now if we come together and pull together to do this. So that's what we're here today to talk about. I thank you all for being here. We're going to hear this morning about how do these learning studios work, how do they get off the ground, what are your opportunities to get involved, and what could we do to make this grow. We're very fortunate to have Steve Robinson here with us, who is with the White House Office of Domestic Policy Council. Steve is a former chemistry and biology teacher from Oregon. He came to Washington a few years ago as an Einstein Fellow to work as an intern. His internship was with a new senator named Barack Obama, and now he's been helping the administration to lead the charge on STEM education. So I kind of grabbed Steve and asked him if he would make a couple of impromptu remarks on what the administration's priorities are and where we think we're headed here. Thank you, Steve.
Good morning. So I was saying that Secretary Riley's shoes are big shoes to fill, but when I worked for then Senator Obama, people would come to visit him and I would show up, so I'm kind of used to this. I've talked to Tom since the inception of these learning studios. I find this a really interesting idea. And part of this is part of my history that Tom doesn't know or didn't talk about, which is my first career was actually as a research scientist. I have a PhD in molecular biology. And for a number of reasons, I decided to stop doing that university work, wanted to go back into teaching. And the first thing I tried to do was volunteer in my kids' schools in Eugene, Oregon, in biology. I thought I could be helpful in a biology class. And it was as though I was an extreme antigen coming into the immune system of the school. They couldn't figure out what to do with me or why. And I didn't really understand that until I decided that I'd become a teacher, and then parents would try to volunteer and I would say, please, I don't want you here. Because there's this really, it's a difficult transition. You know, scientists think that they can be really helpful in schools until they see my 9th grade class and they realize this is a totally different universe and we really have to figure out how to get these two to work together. So just knowing science isn't enough, and for a lot of teachers, not knowing enough science is a challenge. So this could be incredibly powerful, and apparently is incredibly powerful. So I'm really interested in learning more about this. But I'm really here today to talk a little bit about working for President Obama and his interest in STEM, which is something that he's expressed since the very beginning. The first day that I started working in his office as a fellow, he hadn't interviewed me when I came in. And he walks into the office and he says, hey, who are you? And I said, well, I'm your new fellow, I'm a teacher from Oregon. He says, come on in the office, let's talk. So we talked for about 45 minutes about teaching. And he has an incredibly deep understanding of teaching. You know, his sister was a teacher. He often talks about the importance of education in his life and the First Lady's life. And he talks a lot about STEM education. And the reason he does this is, I mean, there's many reasons why he does this, but one of them that is persistent and incredibly important now is his understanding that science and technology, engineering, math, STEM is incredibly important for America's future. That America's future is really going to depend upon the scientists and engineers and the technologists who drive innovation in our country. And that this is going to be a continuing challenge and a continuing issue that we need to address. When President Obama first became president in 2009, one of the first talks he gave was at the National Academy of Sciences about the importance of science, the necessity of science, I think was the title of the address. And what he said that day, there was a line that I like to use. He said it was really important to encourage young people to create and build and invent, to be makers of things, not just consumers of things. And I think that's really what we have to think about in STEM education. That's really the goal. We don't want everyone to become a scientist or an engineer, but we do want everyone to become scientifically literate, to understand how the world works, and to become mathematically competent. Those are incredible skills that everyone needs. The president talks about the economy being built upon the skills of America's people. And we have to think that those, we realize that those skills are skills that are often related to the STEM disciplines. We know that people who have STEM degrees, even if they don't work in STEM fields, are more likely to be employed, are more likely to earn more. And we also know that in terms of equal opportunity, STEM degrees, STEM knowledge is a huge bonus. That there's a huge disparity, a bonus for having STEM skills. And that bonus is even greater if you're a female and you work in a STEM field, or if you're a minority and you work in a STEM field. This is actually an avenue to opportunity. So one of the issues that the president talks about a lot in terms of STEM is the issue of equity and opportunity. That we have to realize that we need to encourage STEM skills and great STEM teaching for all students. This is something that's incredibly important, both as an equity issue, but as an issue of opportunity and innovation for our country. Right? One of the reasons why this is incredibly important is that innovation now is global. Tech jobs are following that. We need to think about the diversity of our country as an asset in terms of innovation and in terms of discovery. So we need more Americans who are involved in STEM learning at a deep level. We need to make sure that we have great science and math teachers for all students, not just students in the leafy green suburbs. We have to think about how we make sure that students in rural schools and students in urban schools, who often we know don't have teachers who are as deeply immersed in STEM fields, that they have the opportunities to do that. And if we have teachers who need to have increased understanding of these areas, that things like these design studios might be a great idea. So the president has, from the beginning of the first term, talked about the importance of STEM and the importance of partnerships in STEM. When he talked about this at the National Academy of Sciences in 2009, he called for an all-hands-on-deck approach, that we really needed to think about partnerships, about how we could involve everyone. And there have been some initiatives that I can just briefly mention. One called Educate to Innovate, which was launched in 2009, 2010, bringing together a number of industry, business people, foundation people at the White House to talk about how we could move forward together and what some of the roles were. And there's an organization that was set up from that called Change the Equation that's working with a number of CEOs across the country to think about how to become more deeply involved in STEM education. What are some of the specific ways that philanthropies and businesses could be involved in STEM? The president has often talked about the need for great STEM teaching. And I just want to mention two initiatives there. One is one of the things that he has talked about a lot is 100,000 great new STEM teachers in the decade. How do we think about how to better prepare teachers in these fields so that when they go into the classroom, they have both the pedagogical content knowledge and the scientific expertise or mathematical expertise needed to be great in this. And recently, in July, he proposed an idea about a STEM Master Teacher Corps, which is the idea that we have many terrific teachers in these fields across the country who often go unrecognized, unrewarded. One of the things that the president often talks about is the idea of teaching as a career with an arc, which should have different steps, different opportunities for teachers as they move through the field. So that when you're looking at teaching as a career, you might not think that my choices are to be a teacher for X number of years and then move out of teaching into the administration or move to the White House, but move into something else. But there might be different steps. There might be different steps along a pathway. And one of these is the issue of how do we retain teachers by saying, if you're a great teacher and if you're willing to take on extra roles and responsibilities, there might be a role for you as a master teacher. So we've decided the president has decided that he really would like to advance this idea of having a core of master teachers in these fields. So this is a proposal that he announced in this past July, and that we're working on trying to advance with some congressional support and a lot of interest about developing a proposal around how to identify great teachers in these fields. And we have lots of recognition programs. We have the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching, but oftentimes those are just recognition. We identify a teacher, we say you're a great teacher, we bring them to the White House, and then they go home, and we don't actually tap their expertise. So the idea is really how do we think about not just identifying great teachers and recognizing them and giving them some rewards, but actually using their expertise. And again, this is an area that I think it would be great to have discussions about how partnerships can help this. If someone is a master teacher, if they have that extra recognition and reward, what are the other things that they might do? And I just want to finish that by, when we announced this, we identified a number of teachers we asked many partners to identify teachers from across the country who might kind of fit this category. And they came to the White House and they sat down, they had a discussion with Cecilia Munoz, the domestic policy advisor, with Secretary Duncan, with John Holdren, the science advisor to the president. And what was really interesting was many of these were teachers who had been recognized through one sort of a program or another, but then they had gone back to their school districts and said, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this, and somebody has recognized me. Maybe I could do more. And what these teachers had taken on of their own volition as kind of extra tasks, not because they had been forced to, not even because they had been asked to, but because all of a sudden the humility of being a teacher in a classroom all by yourself was broken through. You were recognized as being good. There was something more that they would take on as a leadership responsibility or a leadership role, and it was incredibly inspiring. I think it was very inspiring for Secretary Duncan and Director Munoz and John Holdren to hear these stories of teachers who, although they already were working really hard, although they were really excellent teachers, decided that they had an extra role that they could play within their school, within their community, by bringing people together. So I'm really interested in learning more about these studios today, and I thank you for all of your hard work and realize that this is something that Tom said that we have to make sure that teachers, that we have teachers' backs. One of the things that I can say with some confidence is that the president also has the back of public school teachers, and specifically in this area, which he's really interested. So thank you very much.
What I'd like to do is address a little bit this morning the Deerbrook Trust's interest in learning studios, and it's built upon the notion that Tom discussed earlier, teamwork and collaborations. And I want to say right now as a disclaimer, I am not an educator, so I feel a little bit intimidated by being up here. I was trained as a scientist. I also have a PhD, and I spent 27 years at the National Science Foundation, but when you go there, you learn more about paper pushing than you do about science. But I am not a scientist. I am not a technologist. I am not an engineer. And the highest order of math that I do is trying to balance my wife's checkbook. But through the years, I've had a really strong appreciation for the power of partnerships and teamwork. And it's carried over into what I call my encore career now with this private foundation. During this time, I've tried to cajole or otherwise encourage collaborations and the work that I helped to facilitate. My field was oceanography, and I had a head start on learning about collaborations. You cannot study ocean science without collaborating. The very simple, fundamental task of going to sea to collect data requires a collaboration from the scientists on the ship and the crew. And when you think about it, these are two professional groups from very different backgrounds, very different training, collaborating together to make things work. And I believe it's generally realized that, it certainly is by the National Science Foundation, that some of the best and most productive research leading to advances in our knowledge in many fields benefits from the collaboration of people from different fields working together and applying innovative approaches. People with different backgrounds and experience often bring together whole new innovative ways of looking at problems, whether it's in oceanography, medical research, or teaching STEM. I'd like to just give an example that I like using from time to time of a very different collaboration. Several years ago, I was attending a national oceanographic conference, and I was sitting around a table, actually it was in the bar, with about 20 other people, and we were listening to a mechanical engineer describe the work that he was doing with the United States Navy funding. He was developing a very sophisticated laser imaging system that would be used underwater. And it was really Buck Rogers technology at the time. And what he was doing, he was measuring the formation, movement, and dissipation of bubbles as an object was in the water, making the turbulence and creating these bubbles. You see, the Navy had a very keen interest on keeping their submarines stealthy. And as things such as conning towers and other protuberances went through the water, created turbulence, created bubbles, and if there are enough bubbles that burst, they compromised the presence of the submarine. So he was looking at different shaped structures and mapping these bubbles. And it was really, as I said, Buck Rogers technology about 10 or 12 years ago. Well, also sitting at the table was a marine biologist. And he asked one question of the technologist. He said, "What are the size of the bubbles that you are measuring and mapping?" And he said, "Well, it's this size." And it turned out to be the exact same size as the plankton that this biologist was studying. And plankton, as you know, is sort of the basis of the food chain, and it's very, very difficult for biologists to map ecological parameters affecting the range and distribution and movements of plankton. So he had a whole new technology through this collaboration, and it resulted in some major advances in our understanding of patterns in the ocean that had really some implications for fisheries research too. So it was kind of a fun story, some unusual collaborations um, serendipitous collaborations. Well, back to this morning. I met Tom at a conference out in California. It was held by an organization called Civic Ventures. Civic Ventures is a think tank that puts together programs to engage retirees, boomers, and others, and help them receive training, motivation, information on giving back to society. One of their programs is called Experience Corps, which has a very big presence in Baltimore. They have 23 elementary schools in Baltimore County, or Baltimore City, that have Experience Corps programs in them. So Tom was there, as I was, because the Deerbrook Trust trustees had a very keen interest in looking at the changes that are changing demographics in the United States is making, and the opportunities that these retirees present in terms of their potential time, talents, experience in giving back to society by working in schools and working in nonprofits. So I learned more and more about learning studios. They were very similar models. Learning studios doesn't necessarily involve retirees. They also involve active people in government and industry. But the model of bringing outside expertise in through collaborations was something that was really exciting to us. It really emphasized again the opportunities, the importance of collaborations. And to me personally, the fact that it was involving STEM education was an extra bonus. So I know there's a great deal of resources going into STEM education in the country today. We've heard about the government activities. And a lot of the industries are interested in STEM education for fostering their workforce. And I believe it's going to take a whole range of approaches to improving STEM education. And certainly the learning studios is one of those that are going to be very effective, I think. And we're really pleased to be able to have supported the fostering and the expansion of STEM in this area and hopefully in some other states. So with that, I'm very interested in hearing some of the specifics, and I'm sure you all are, and how this program works and what the plans are for the future. Thank you.